Hey everybody, it's This One Verse, and I'm back from my hiatus today with my first video of 2022. So in terms of what's with the headgear, new year, new me. My brother's sweet, and he got me this as a Christmas gift, and I didn't really know that I wanted a hooded blanket. Like if you'd asked me if I wanted this for Christmas, I would have been like, don't bother. But now that I have it, it's just it's a lot of fun. And I wanted to wear it and show it off. I'm going to be doing the Ring and the New Year's book tag. Before I get into more details about the tag, I wanted to remind people that tonight at 8 p.m. EST, Shay of Shay with the Hobbies will be hosting the first reading sprint of the Inheritance Trilogy read-along that we're co-hosting. It's going to be exciting, so if you want to join us, please feel free to do so. I will link the playlist for the read-along in the description box below. That includes my and Shay's announcements, as well as the sprints that Shay will be hosting. Yeah, so I will be on that sprint later tonight. Probably not in this, but you never know. Any woozles. So, Ringing in the New Year book tag. What is it? Why am I doing it? This tag was created by Ray of Bookmark Chronicles. Ray is hilarious. She's just very honest about everything. So you should check her out and subscribe. And also I'm doing this because I realized that I do the mid-year book freakout tag, which is a nice way to think about the first half of my year. But I don't really do something looking back on my year more cumulatively than that. Or even just talking about the second half. I know the end of the year book tag exists, but for me it feels too busy. It's oh, what are your big plans the rest of the year? It's it's the end of the year. I don't have plans. I'm going into hibernation. So this was more what I wanted to do. So I'm gonna do it. So the first question is best book or series that you read in 2021. If you want to know the best books that I read in the first half of the year, you can check out my mid-year book freakout tag. When I say best book of the year, I mean I just looked at my Storygraph profile and said, okay, what books did I give 5 stars? And so since the mid-year book freakout tag, I've only rated one book 5 stars, and that is White is for Witching by Helen Oyeyemi. This is a buddy read with Brie of Locked Booktician, and this is a literary haunted house book. I really didn't know what to make of this book. The first chapter, I was just lost. There are 4 different narrators, and we don't know who any of them are until maybe a third of the way into the book, which isn't too bad because it's a fairly short book. And then I got to the end, and I was still confused, but I was also really disturbed and exhilarated. I was pacing and trying to figure out what I had just read. And I was messaging people who I thought had read it relatively recently. What did you think of this? What is going on here? I need to talk about this with somebody. And this one, I kind of left it at 4 stars for a little bit. And I was no, this is just in my head. This has just worked its way into my brain. This is a 5-star read. And I'm going to get into it more when I do a wrap up. So the next question is authors you've discovered this year and you would like to read more from. In terms of is there an author that is going to be the first thing I read next year? Not really. And I have been reading a lot of debut authors recently, or people where I've kind of read most of their backlist already. But I have been itching for more Black Sapphic romances, and I think Carmen Lee has a backlist, at least maybe 2 or 3 other novels. So I'm going to check those out. Next question is, what is the best book turned movie or TV adaptation in 2021, or your most anticipated adaptation for 2022? At first, I thought this was just going to go to Heaven Official's Blessing. I had already scripted it up, and then in the midnight hour of December, I started watching. It has 3 titles: Founder of Diabolism, or Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, or Mo Dao Zushi, based on a novel of the same name by Mo Sheng Tang Shu. It's the same person who wrote the novel that Heaven Official's Blessing is based off of. And this shit just had me in a chokehold for at least a week. I just got off of work and I just like immediately like opened up tabs to watch the show. Was watching it till like the wee hours of the morning, and it eventually edged out Heaven Official's Blessing as my favorite. It's not really a fair comparison because the series is complete for Mode Azushi, but Heaven Official's Blessing only has one season. I think like around like the one season mark, like if we're comparing apples to apples here, I think I did like Heaven Official's Blessing better. But like in its entirety, Mode Azushi just has a hold on me. I was arrogant. I initially thought I wasn't gonna get the books, but like I'm realizing that I don't think my library is gonna get it. And it has a grip on me. Like it's at a point where like I kind of don't care what the translation looks like. I just want to read the source material.
Editing Chloe here. I realized that in my excitement to talk about Mode Azushi, I never actually gave like a synopsis of what it's about. It's basically this fantasy world inspired by historical China, where there's these families of magic users called cultivators, and people dying causes, it's called resentful energy. It basically causes like ghosts and zombies to pop up. And so the cultivator's job is to repress the resentful energy. There's a way to harness resentful energy, but it's like super duper frowned upon. And it's like not good. You shouldn't do that. And of course, someone does it. The protagonist, Wei Wuxian, does it. And it's about like his exploration of this new magic and like this political drama between the different cultivator clans and this buddy romance between one of his more like orthodox classmates, Lan Shan. If I remember correctly, the magic draws from like Taoist principles.
So why did I love this series so much? The drama and the plotting. Like, oh my goodness, these people can hold a grudge. And just like the layers of all the like plans that people come up with, it was a lot. The protagonist, Wei Wuxian, is like super duper charming. Kind of like my favorite protagonist type, honestly. Like, not really big on rules, kind of does his own thing, kind of like a quick talker. So I just finished the animation, and like I said, I haven't read the books. I've heard that like the romantic elements are kind of toned down from the book, and like I felt like in the cartoon, definitely, I felt like Wei Wuxian and Lan Shan didn't have like as much of a connection until like maybe like the final season of the show. But I think it also depends on the adaptation you watched, because I'm like I've now moved on to the live action web series The Untamed, which I had like tried to start with. I kind of like jumped ship after an episode. I was like, this is confusing with these time skips, and I can't with these graphics. It hurts my heart. And now that the story has its claws on my spirit, I'm like going back and watching it, and like I honestly don't know which one I like better. Like I feel like if you want the fights to look really nice, like watch the cartoon. But I feel like the web series, we do get like more of the relationships between the characters. I remember I finished the Danganronpa, I was like, wow, I wish I'd felt a little bit more like conflicted about Wei Wuxian. Like it's so rare for me to finish a series and be like, why didn't the creator hurt me just like a little bit more? And so I'm going to the Untamed. I'm like, yes, this is the pain that I was craving. I'm now like halfway into the Untamed. Like by the time I'm done, I don't know if I'll really have a favorite one. I think I'm just gonna like them for different reasons. I think it definitely speaks to like the story and the acting that like I know everything that's gonna happen at this point for the most part, and I'm still at the point where it's like getting to be like 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night, and I'm like, I really should go to bed. I have to get up tomorrow morning. But what if I could just squeeze in like one more episode? Maybe I could just get in one more. I'll still be able to get up in the morning. Like I think this is like a kind of like a rare story for me where I'm like invested in like all of the characters. Like I wanted everyone to have like interesting like backstories and like fulfilling arcs and stuff. Yeah, Mode Azushi is just gonna take up way too much of my mind space for like a good chunk of 2022. Because apparently there's other adaptations. Like apparently there is a manhwa adaptation, like a comic, and then there's like a podcast. So like it's gonna take up way too much of my time. Next question is, have your reading habits changed at all this year, and have you gotten into any new genres? So I've noticed that even like compared to like the end of 2020, where we're still like in the pandemic, my reading is still even more scattered since then. Like the year ended and I was like, oh, I think it'd be cute to like finish up all the books I have open that I haven't finished, because I know at this point it's like a number greater than one. And I like looked at my story graph and I was like, oh wow, I have 9 books open and in very various stages of completion. There is not a chance I could finish all these in December. I don't really even want to finish these in December. I can't remember a month in the past 2 years where I've read 9 books. This just isn't gonna happen. So I'm definitely more scattered. I'm definitely also a lot more like temperamental. Like there's a lot of books where I got like 10 pages in and was like, I'm not feeling this. I'm just putting it down. There's like books where I had to take it out from the library like 2 to 4 times to finish it, which was like not something I would usually do. In terms of like any new genres I've gotten into, romance and erotica for sure. That was pretty much all I read in November, and so I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in my November wrap up. So like I'm not a romance reader. Like when I first started reading again, I was kind of wary of romance because like the romantic subplots and sex scenes and like the stuff I had read often like really annoyed me. Mind you, like the last time I had been like reading, I was like a teenager. Like there are certain euphemisms that just really set me off and get under my skin. And so like I'd like read one of those words, I'd be like, just throw the whole scene away. Like I don't want to read this anymore. Can we just call a thing a thing? Or there are some things that I would just think are like silly. Like I distinctly remember reading like YA books that were like male female pairings going on and on about like, oh, the female protagonist is so soft compared to like this hard manly man, and I was like, this is a lot. This is a lot. Like I don't understand. I don't like this. I don't want to read this. Like this is bad enough in just like a scene. I don't want to do a whole like book dedicated to this. And like I was on Twitter, not really even on book Twitter, but people were just talking about Beverly Jenkins, and they're like, oh, she's great, she's great. Like one of the like big names in Black romance, one of the big names in romance in general. She's great, she's great. And so I was like, it's kind of unfair that I don't want to read romance based off like not even reading romance. Like I should probably just like pick something up and then go from there. So I picked up Tempest by Beverly Jenkins, which was, I think I had mentioned it on my channel. It was back when I was only doing like library haul / TBRs. So like the video quality is all grainy and I don't really recommend watching it, but like if you've been around for a while, you might have remembered me picking it up and not talking about it again. So I'm circling back finally 2 years later. I remember like reading the premise, which is that it's like this mail order bride. I think it's like Reconstruction era Wyoming. Like I thought the Civil War had happened, and it was around the time where Chinese workers were like building the railroads, and there's like a lot of like anti-Asian racism and like a lot of like labor struggles going on. And I was like, okay, so this is a heterosexual Christian marriage at a socially conservative time. Like, how good can the sex be? Like, how much can they really vary the sex scenes up in this book? And I was pleasantly surprised. Beverly Jenkins did what she had to do. I really read it and I was like, this is fun. I could get used to this. And like, I enjoyed the story in general. Like the the heroine is like this like gun-toting like adventurous woman, and like the meet cute is that she accidentally shoots him thinking that he's like a highwayman, like a robber. And people keep bringing it up. They're like, oh, be careful, be careful. If you piss her off, she might shoot you again. And I was like, she just might. So that was fun. It kind of like warmed me up to like, oh, I can actually like read a romance novel and have a good time. And just in general, I always see romance Twitter cutting up and having a good time. Like Miss WC Reader, Bookish Realm, Sharonda Isadora, Weekend Reader, Cole of Who Picked This Book, HEA Reader, Deidre Shade She Reads. I'll link everyone in the description box below. But it just looks like people reading romance books are having fun, and I wanted in on it. So yeah, if I do anything right in that November wrap-up, like mass review, it's all thanks to them, and if I do anything wrong, it's completely my fault. And just as like a hobbyist and fanfic writer, I like really struggle with writing believable characters and like dialogue, so it is like kind of researchy. And I think it'll also give me some good questions to think about for the stuff that I write. I don't know. I just know there's some things that I write where I'm like, oh, I'm not really reading other people writing like this. Like, is there like a reason? Like, am I doing this wrong? Is it just because like I haven't read a whole lot? I think my big takeaway is getting used to writing dual point of view stuff because I don't think I'd ever done that before. And then the next question is favorite ship, romantic or platonic, or your new favorite character. So in general, I like certain types of pairings. Like I really like grumpy sunshine pairings or like chaotic lawful pairings. If it's like a male female pairing and it's grumpy sunshine, I tend to prefer like grumpy woman like sunshine guy. And I tend to like relationships that have like that like hurt comfort element, like, oh no, I'm injured and I need someone to look out for me. Oh my goodness, you're gonna take care of me in my time of need? Gasp. Romance ensues. This like is for like romantic stuff, but also like platonic stuff as well, honestly. In terms of romantic pairings, I liked Hetty and Benji from The Conductors. They're kind of like a chaos lawful pairing. It's a historical fantasy murder mystery set in Reconstruction era Philadelphia. Hetty's like not super invested in like social niceties, so she kind of like rubs people away. She's very like quick-witted with the insults. Doesn't have a lot of patience for like being disrespected or people are trying to waste her time. And Benji's like more like calm and stoic and quiet. Other pairing would be Irene and Remy from Mechanics of Love by Mika James. This doesn't really cleanly fit into one of my categories. Maybe Grumpy Sunshine, maybe. This is one of the Black Sapphic romances I read in November. It's about this like bougie former trophy wife, Irene, who's recently divorced her husband. She's moving back to her hometown to be with her family. They kind of met in high school. Irene kind of had a thing for Remy, but like also she wasn't really out in high school, so she kind of like repressed it, didn't act on it, and she kind of resented how Remy just kind of always has done and said what she like feels and like wants to do. Like Remy's pretty straightforward in that respect, and Remy is like, I always thought that Irene was kind of annoying, and like she thinks she's pretty, but she's like, oh, she's pretty annoying. So there's like, oh, we're drawn to each other, but like, oh, why are we drawn to each other like that? I think I really liked their relationship because Irene is just so funny when she's flirting. Like it is just like not subtle like at all. Like she kind of just decides like Remy's cool. I would like to get to know Remy as a friend, and then maybe that will translate into something romantically. And she just kind of like shows up like in Remy's life. It was like, hey Remy, and just like following her everywhere, just like sticking to her like a barnacle. I'd say that Remy's kind of the grumpy one, and Irene's like the one who's like trying to like have fun and like make things happen, or at least be like nice to Remy. And if we're talking platonic, these are more like chaos lawful pairings. There's Catherine and Jane from Deathless Divide by Justina Ireland. This is a sequel to Dread Nation. It's kind of an alternate history where the Civil War was interrupted by a zombie attack. Basically, it's about these black teen girls who've been conscripted into working as zombie hunters, and Catherine and Jane are two such girls. And in terms of why I really like their friendship, Jane thinks she's kind of unlovable. Like, she's kind of put, I think, her hopes and, like, her self-worth in, like, the wrong people. And Catherine kind of has to remind her that, like, Jane is more than, like, her ex-flames and, like, her family members that don't get her. Catherine has to be like, of course, people want to spend time with you. I would like to spend time with you. Also, please stop killing people and endangering yourself. It gets pretty grim at one point for a young adult. Jane becomes like this bounty hunter and she's doing some pretty grisly stuff. This was like a relationship that I was hoping would turn romantic, but like truthfully, Jane probably doesn't really need a romance. She probably needs like just like working on building her other relationship. Catherine is doing a lot of work in the relationship. It becomes more mutual. And then Kunigaru and Matazindu from Grace of Kings, which is part of the Dandelion Dynasty by Ken Liu. The only reason I picked up this book was because Tammy Tries to Read and Sufficiently Advanced Lena were hosting a read-along of it. And I really enjoyed the read-along, and I wanted to encourage people to check that out. There's a Discord for it and stuff, and I'll link it in the description box below. This one is interesting because Kunigaru is like this charming trickster. This isn't a Chaos Lawful pairing. I lied. Only Catherine and Jade are Chaos Lawful. These people are both chaotic in very different ways. On the surface, Matazindu is lawful, but like he doesn't make a lot of sense if you really get into the weeds. But basically, Kunigaru is this like charming like trickster. He kind of like gets over on people by like sweet talking them and like outsmarting them. And Matazindu is kind of like this like cold rules guy. He's very much a warrior. Like he puts really a lot of his worth in like his battle skills and like just shows of strength. And so he's not always like super suited to like other situations. Honestly, he's not even always super suited to battle because strength isn't always what wins battles. Honestly, Matazindu annoyed the hell out of me. Like, I really did not like him for like a third of the book, I would say. And it wasn't really until this friendship with Kunigaru started to develop that I like sort of started to see it for him. Also, just like the devotion that he inspires in the soldiers who work with him. One thing I hate is when characters like throw people into these risky situations that they themselves would not do, but like everything that Matazindu asks of his soldiers, he will do himself, no matter how poorly thought out it is. And I think that gets a lot of their respect. And I was like, okay, he's consistent at least. I'll give him that. But I think through this friendship, we see like a more sentimental side. And yeah, you just have to read the story to see what happens to that. Because good things do not last in the Dandelion Dynasty. And then in terms of like favorite characters, I would say Corinne from ACACIA by David Anthony Durham. This is like this an epic fantasy like power struggle type of book. Like there's a lot of like different people vying for the throne, and it's like kind of like a bleak political fantasy. Corinne is I think my favorite character because I think she was the most dynamic. She starts off as kind of a non-factor. Like in the beginning, she's very much riding on marrying to secure her position, and like no one's really counting on her to like come into power. Like she doesn't even really want power. She just wants to be close to people who have it so she can stay relatively safe. And there's kind of a point where she realizes that she can't rely on anyone. She has to rely on herself. It's a bit tragic. It's a bit sad. I think there's also something about it that felt very real and that I related to. And then my other favorite is just like Kunigaru from Grace of Kings. Like I said, he's so charismatic. He had so many jokes. His like motto is like, I'm just going to do the most interesting things. So he gets himself into these weird situations and he always just kind of like makes the best of it somehow. So he's like a lot of fun to watch him like get himself into these tricky situations and get himself back out. I don't think he's gonna be fun in the next two books. I think he's kind of run the course of like free spirited Kunigaru, and I think that some sad things are gonna be coming for him in the future. Next question: have you started planning your TBR for 2022, and how many books do you hope to read? So planning has started, and I get into more details on that for my New Year's book tag, which should be out within the next 2 days. Just for the purpose of not repeating myself, because these videos are going to be coming out really close back to back, just stay tuned. Will you participate in any read challenges or readathons? So I host Black SFF-a-thon in October, planning to host it again this year. I might be co-hosting something in May, which I can't really talk about at this time, but of course, stay posted. In 2021, I did reading challenges for Rebel Women Lit, Black Prose Club, and the Free Black Women's Library. I didn't complete any of those challenges. I generally don't really try to, truthfully. It's just kind of like a nice thing to like put different books on my radar that I might not normally read. And so I will probably be looking out for if they do any reading challenges this year as well. So any New Year's resolutions or goals? And again, New Year's book tag is where I really get into that, so stay tuned for that. So, that was my video. If you liked the video, please hit the like button. If you want to talk about anything I said, please comment down below. Subscribe if you want to stay up to date with me and the bookish content that I make. So tag somebody. I'm going to tag Kay of Read, Love, Listen. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. Have a good one. Hope you're having a good start to your new year, and goodbye.